last month, the Supreme Court rightly overturned the Chevron Doctrine, which the EPA relied on to support its very controversial and costly rulemakings. Since your agency has never been authorized by Congress and has since lost most legal standing, does your agency still plan to enable rogue bureaucrats to enact unconstitutional regulations?
I'm not quite sure I follow you. You're saying that...
I'm saying the Chevron Doctrine was overturned by the Supreme Court.
We have no authority?
I'm saying you've never been authorized. Wait, hold on.
Congress doesn't delegate authority for us to do the regulations and the business and the policy. So since 1970...
So the Chevron Doctrine, where you have created all of these rules under that have been proven to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, has been overruled. So now I'm asking, are your bureaucrats still going to implement these rulemaking processes?
You do know Chevron is not just focused on EPA. So,
but you are. So I'm asking about the EPA, and I'm asking about your rogue bureaucrats that have enacted these unconstitutional regulations. Are you going to repeal them? Are you going to continue to implement them, or are you going to stop altogether, since it's been overturned?
Do you understand the ruling?
Do you understand the ruling of the Supreme Court?
I do. And so your question is ill-formed. No.
Will you be repealing?
We're not going to stop.
So you're going to unconstitutionally continue with these rulemakings?
We're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our...
So which rulemakings are you going to roll back?
We're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our work in accordance to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court
So which ones are you going to repeal?
The Supreme Court didn't tell us to repeal anything.
They have been deemed unconstitutional.
No.
Absolutely, they have. This was a huge victory. And, even in our appropriations bill in the House this year, the funding has been reduced by 20%. I would argue that it needs to be reduced by 100%.
Lauren Boebert really thought she was on to something while grilling EPA Administrator Michael Regan. What she didn't know, as per usual, is that she was making a complete fool of herself, as Representative Dan Goldman will highlight.
But I would just like to clarify a few things for my colleague from Colorado. The Loper-Bright ruling, as you know, said that the courts should not defer to agency rulemaking if a statute is ambiguous, and instead the courts get to determine whether or not what the statute means. Is that your understanding as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that would not require any regulations to be reversed or overturned, correct?
Correct.
Goldman is 100% correct here. The recent SCOTUS ruling repealing the 1984 Chevron Doctrine says nothing about repealing laws and regulations that are already in effect while simultaneously deeming them unconstitutional. While still a disastrous decision, the recent Chevron decision sends disputes in legal interpretations of regulatory statutes to lower courts instead of relying on the agency's interpretation of the law. Listen, we all misspeak, but this is just flat out buffoonery. The idea of a sitting congressperson getting something like this so wrong while still feeling so confident in what they're saying is frankly absurd. The woman is standing 10 toes down on incompetence. Why would anyone vote for this except sheer defiance? Because one can.
It's because of these radical Green New Deal policies that jeopardize domestic energy development and overload America's power grid and raise costs on American consumers and businesses. So with the EPA and these overreaching regulations, do you have any intent on working with the House majority to lower energy costs and produce more reliable and affordable energy?
If you look at our rule, we are producing reliable, affordable, diverse.
I think Americans' wallets would disagree with that. I mean, the Biden administration, if they continue under Obama's administrative policies, this regulatory pace for a full 8 years, the cumulative costs of this administration's rulemakings would exceed $60,000 per household. And as you know, the Biden administration reversed President Trump's successful deregulation by executive order. So the Biden regime is on pace of increasing regulatory costs at a rate of $617 billion per year in just rulemaking that we are seeing is unconstitutional.
Boebert is so lazy, as loud as a head cheerleader without the drive. She chooses to engage in pure political theater, refusing to do even basic homework about the global political and economic forces that drive energy and gas, oil prices. It's frustrating for anyone serious. And now, Administrator Regan has rightfully lost his patience with Boebert's nonsense, and he decides to call her out straight to her face.
It's just shocking. You spend so much time with our regional staff and regional administration and Region 8 and have such productive conversations about how we're doing things for your district and your state. And then you take this microphone and you
I've also seen the coal plants that have been decommissioned in my state.
But 100% we should not
I've seen the energy regulations that have regulated my district into poverty.
You're spending time with my staff.
So sure.
In your district.
Of course I am. I have oversight over your staff, and I want them to answer. I want them to provide a service for the American people.
Complimenting them
but there
about
are
the partnerships.
so much. Yes, there are some things that have been done well, but not everything.
100%
when we have $617 billion per year in rulemaking, that is absolutely absurd. When you are taking our affordable clean energy and regulating it out of existence and killing these good-paying jobs in my district, yes, I have a problem with that.
Sure. Yeah.
My time has expired, and I yield.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think that was 46 seconds over.
Now let's turn back to Dan Goldman for even more evidence of Boebert's and our Supreme Court's incompetence.
In that room with the world's greatest experts and the EPA experts, are there any federal judges?
No.
So what the Supreme Court just did, am I correct, is say that the experts should not get any deference in how they implement the rulemaking process, but that the non-experts in the judiciary are the ones who get to do that. Is that your understanding?
This new case seems to take that away from us and gives it to the court.
Exactly. A complete power grab that was led for many years, decades, by the Koch brothers, who have spent tens of millions of dollars in trying to overturn this Chevron Doctrine in order to benefit their oil and gas and other industries that harm the environment. Clarence Thomas didn't recuse himself. He ruled on it. And yet Clarence Thomas took free private flights paid for by the Koch brothers, went to their events, raised money for them. This is all documented. And then after that, in 2020, Clarence Thomas just completely reversed his view of the Chevron Doctrine. Funny, convenient. And yet he's ruling on this case. And what is going to happen is that this Trump Project 2025, just like Ms. Boebert said, is going to try to eliminate all environmental regulations. Donald Trump has offered to do that for the oil and gas company if their industry leaders can provide him with $1 billion to help in his campaign. But now that he has absolute immunity, if he becomes president, he can't get charged for that obvious criminal public corruption violation. And so he's going to try to implement Project 2025, eliminate the EPA, eliminate climate change from all regulations, eliminate the experts at the EPA and other agencies and put in his political lackeys, and then get to go to Clarence Thomas to determine whether or not what the executive agencies decided makes any sense. This is the destruction of our democracy.
You know, this Republican-led war on the administrative state and unelected bureaucrats, it will impact all of our lives. The implications of curtailing the power of federal agencies to enforce the laws and regulations they're tasked with overseeing means we all get much less protection, life-saving protections disappearing before our eyes. You know, you don't need much imagination to consider how corporations will abuse the lengthy time it takes for legal challenges to get adjudicated while continuing to violate whatever regulation they're challenging. It's a game running out the clock just to make a buck.